I never wanted to marry her. She was the daughter of a family friend, the kind of woman everyone loved without question, bright and devoted in every way. But I hesitated, reluctant to bind myself. Still, I gave in, and she gave me her everything. I broke it. I cheated. When she found out, she didn't scream or rage. She just quietly shattered, folding herself into silence, crying herself to sleep every night. She never accused, never told anyone, took the blame on herself. She loved me still, even as she withered away, lost to a slow, silent sorrow. Then one day, without warning, her heart simply gave out. She passed away with her hand clutching mine, leaving me drowning in a sea of regret I will never escape. I don't remember the first time I met her. Anna. She was just there. One day she was a little girl in our living room, quietly helping my younger sister with a coloring book. Another day, she was sitting at our kitchen table, her legs swinging off the chair, telling my mother about a book she'd read. She was the daughter of one of my mom's closest friends, so she came around often. Birthdays, holidays, weekends, when her mom was busy. At first, I barely noticed. She wasn't loud. She didn't demand attention. She was just this soft presence, polite, careful, always ready to help with something. I remember once she spent nearly an hour untangling Christmas lights while the rest of us gave up. She didn't say a word, didn't make a big show of it. Just sat on the floor, humming to herself, pulling the knots apart until the lights blinked back to life. My dad gave her a candy cane and told her she had the patience of a saint. She smiled and said thank you, like it was nothing. That was always how she was. People liked having her around. She made things easier, calmer. She was the kind of person who remembered everyone's birthdays, offered to carry bags without being asked, and somehow knew just when to refill someone's glass at the dinner table. My mom adored her. My grandmother once called her a rare kind of girl in that tone that meant more than it seemed. I was never cruel to her, just distant. I was older, focused on school, sports, friends. She was just that quiet girl who always offered to do the dishes even when it wasn't her house. Years passed. She grew up, slowly, in that way that sneaks up on you. One day she was a kid in sneakers, and the next she was helping my mother arrange flowers for the dinner table in a pale dress, hair pinned back, eyes softer and wiser than you'd expect. She still didn't say much, still helped in the background, like it was her place in the world. And people noticed. They noticed how kind she was, how mature, how effortlessly thoughtful. Everyone liked her, more than liked her, really. She's a treasure, my aunt said once. She's going to make some man very lucky, my grandmother murmured another time. Eventually, they stopped talking in general terms. Eventually, it became specific. Have you ever thought about her? She's always been so good to you. She cares about you, you know. I told them no. That I didn't see her that way. That I didn't feel what I was supposed to feel. But they never stopped hinting. The strange thing was, she never said anything. Never tried. Never flirted or forced herself into my life. She just kept showing up, setting the table, helping clean up, asking how my job was going even when I barely remembered to ask her anything in return. She never pushed, but she was always there, always kind, always remembering the smallest things. What I liked in my coffee, what book I'd been reading, the name of the old boss I hated. At first it was just endearing, then it became expected, and eventually, it started to feel like pressure, like everyone around me had already decided for me, like I owed her something for all her goodness, all her quiet patience. I started avoiding coming home, making excuses for missing family dinners. But every time I came back, birthdays, holidays, things I couldn't skip, there she was, standing in the kitchen with her sleeves rolled up, laughing softly with my mother, asking me gently if I was tired from the drive, and I was tired. Tired of being asked, tired of disappointing people, tired of not knowing what I wanted, only knowing what everyone else did. Eventually, I stopped saying no. I don't remember deciding to be with her, not really. It wasn't a moment. It was a slow drift, a gradual slide into the life everyone had already imagined for me. There was no grand gesture, no sweeping passion, just the steady pull of familiarity, of comfort. of her. One day we were talking over dinner after my mother's birthday. Just the two of us, standing by the sink while the others laughed in the living room. She handed me a dish towel without asking, and I took it without thinking. She smiled. I remember how quiet that moment felt. How easy. And the next time I was in town, I stayed longer. Then we had coffee. Then lunch. Soon enough, we were seeing each other. Not officially, not with some declaration. Just with silence. Agreement. She didn't ask where it was going. I didn't offer any promises. But she looked at me like I was already hers, and I didn't have the strength, or maybe the clarity, to break that illusion. She was always so gentle with me, so considerate, always choosing restaurants I liked, always asking how my work was going. She remembered the stressful projects, the names of difficult co-workers. She called just to check in. Left me little things. Homemade bread, handwritten, notes. A scarf, she said, reminded her of something I once wore. People loved us together. They'd say we balanced each other. That her calm steadied my restlessness. That I brought her out of her shell. I didn't feel like I was doing anything. She did all the work. She was always trying. Always offering more of herself than I ever asked for. My mother was overjoyed. "You finally came to your senses," she said with tears in her eyes. "She's been in love with you since she was a girl," my aunt added with a knowing smile. And maybe she had been. Maybe that's what made it harder to walk away. There was a loyalty in her that scared me, because I hadn't earned it. Not in the way she deserved, but I didn't say that. I smiled. I nodded. I held her hand when people were looking. And eventually the question came. Not from her. Never from her. From everyone else. "Are you going to marry her? She's perfect for you. You won't find anyone who loves you like that?" I'd come home for a weekend. Her mother made dinner. My parents were there. Someone brought out wine. Laughter floated through the house like old music. And at one point in front of everyone, my mother asked the question. Casually, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Well, when's the wedding?" She blushed. I froze. My father raised his glass. And I said yes. Not because I'd dreamed about it. Not because I saw forever in her eyes. But because I didn't know how to say no without breaking something deep inside her. Something soft and fragile she'd built carefully over the years. She cried when I proposed, alone, later that night. I didn't even do it right. No ring, no kneeling. Just the words, awkward and flat. Still, she looked at me like I'd just handed her the universe. That look. It stayed with me. Haunted me. She threw herself into wedding plans. Nothing extravagant, just enough to make everyone happy. She cared about the flowers, the food, making sure the guests were comfortable. But she didn't care about the dress, or the venue, or the photos. She cared about me. Every decision she made circled back to that. "What do you want?" she'd ask. "What would make you happy?" And I'd answer, half-heartedly, "Whatever you like is fine." It was always easier that way. The wedding was beautiful. Soft gold, lights, a warm autumn breeze. She looked radiant, though I hate that word now, because it feels borrowed from someone else's love story. But she did. She glowed. Everyone said so. I smiled through it all, kissed her when I was supposed to, held her hand during the first dance, while her eyes searched mine for something I wasn't sure was there. She was so happy, and I was so quiet. That's how our marriage began. At first, it was simple. She made things easy, peaceful. She remembered when I had early meetings, made me coffee the way I liked it, left little notes in my coat pockets with reminders or silly doodles. She'd wait up for me when I worked late, even if she was falling asleep on the couch. She'd rub my shoulders, ask about my day, listen, really listen. Even when I had nothing to say, she didn't demand, she didn't nag, she didn't get angry when I was tired or withdrawn. She'd just nod, smile gently, and let me be. And somehow, that made it worse. Because with every quiet kindness, the guilt grew louder. I knew I didn't love her the way she loved me. Not with that deep, aching devotion. Not with that selfless care. I respected her, admired her, even liked her, but I didn't feel what I was supposed to. And I kept telling myself that maybe love came later, that maybe I'd grow into it, that if I stayed long enough, her warmth would soften the cold corners inside me. But time passed, and it didn't. Went through the motions, birthdays, anniversaries, weekend trips with her hand in mine, but I always felt like I was acting in a play I hadn't auditioned for. And the worst part? She never noticed, or maybe she did. Maybe she saw the distance and tried to bridge it in her own quiet ways, baking my favorite things, dressing up on random weeknights, learning to make my mother's stew from scratch. But she never asked why I'd grown quiet, never pushed me to explain the growing weight in my chest, because she didn't want to know, because knowing would break the spell, and I was too much of a coward to shatter her dream. So I let her keep loving me. And somewhere, in that silence, I failed her. It didn't happen all at once. That would have been easier, cleaner somehow. It began like most sins do, quiet, almost innocent, easy to excuse at first. She was a new hire, bright, charming, confident in a way that made her magnetic without being loud. The kind of woman who laughed at your jokes before you even finished them, who touched your arm lightly when she spoke, who made you feel like the most interesting man in the room even when you had nothing to say. She didn't know about her, my wife. Or maybe she did. But if so, she didn't care. Or maybe she thought I didn't care. And maybe she was right. It had been so long since someone looked at me like that. Like I was wanted, not out of habit, not out of history, but out of hunger. My wife loved me because she always had. This woman wanted me because she didn't know me. That difference made me feel alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. It started small, always does. Late meetings, quick coffees, a ride home after work that turned into drinks, a joke that turned into a secret that turned into a touch. Then, one night, it wasn't just a touch. It was her lips on mine in the corner of the parking garage. Her hand on my chest. My breath caught in my throat. Not from guilt, but from the thrill of being someone else. Just for a moment. It happened right there, in the backseat of my car. Same car me and Anna made countless memories, and I didn't even try to stop it. I stopped at a bar before going home. I needed time to process what I just did. Had a few too many drinks. I didn't realize it was almost midnight. Didn't realize I had put my phone on silent back in that parking garage. I took my phone out. 12 missed calls. All from Anna. Couple dozen texts. You'd think I'd regret more, but I didn't. I got angry. Her constant worry felt frustrating, more than ever right then, as I sat in that bar stool. I didn't bother calling her back. Just a text saying, "Be home soon." I expected her to be in bed. I don't remember what time it was. She was there, sitting, eyes red. She had been crying. She didn't let it show. I expected screaming, crying, blaming me, accusing me. Instead, she forced a smile. "Long day?" she asked, voice trembling. I could tell she was giving it her everything to not break down in front of me. I couldn't believe her. I was standing there, probably still smelling like the other woman's perfume. She could have accused. She could have brought up the missed calls, the texts I ignored. I just stood there, too drunk to process anything. "I'm sorry the food's gone cold, love. It has been sitting out for a while. I'll put it back in the oven. You go freshen up." I think part of me realized what I did, but the alcohol kicked in. I don't know what I said. Brushed her off and went to bed. I think I heard her crying softly as she did the dishes in the next room. I promised myself that it would stop. She didn't deserve this, but it didn't stop. The affair began with stolen evenings, hotel rooms that smelled like bleach and regret, late texts I kept under a different name, a second toothbrush in my office drawer, all hidden, all wrapped in lies I told too easily. Anna never suspected. She was still waiting up for me every night, still calling to ask what I wanted for dinner, still folding my clothes with lavender-scented dryer sheets, still putting her hand on my knee when we drove, like she couldn't believe I was hers. And then, she found out. Not because I confessed. No. She found out because of a mistake. A stupid, careless, meaningless mistake. I had come home late. Again. Told her a client dinner ran long. She smiled, tired but understanding, and said she'd left food for me in the oven. I said thanks. Kissed her on the forehead. Went to wash up. And that's when it happened. I left my phone on the counter. Just, for a minute, she was pouring water from the kettle, her back to me. The phone buzzed once, then again. I didn't hear it at first. But she did. I came out of the bathroom and saw her standing completely still, the kettle overflowing, water hissing against the red-hot coil of the stove. She was holding my phone in her hand. Her eyes locked, on the screen. I felt it in my stomach before I even got close. I saw the message. I need last night again. Can we get away this weekend? Just us. She hadn't opened it. Just read it from the notification banner. She didn't blink. She just turned the stove off slowly, set the kettle down, and handed me the phone. Then she walked to the sink and started cleaning up. Mechanically, like she was moving through thick fog, like her body was trying to do normal things while her mind was somewhere else entirely. I stood there frozen, the phone in my hand, the message still glowing on the screen like a wound. She didn't ask anything, didn't say a word. But her silence, it was deafening. Finally, as she was drying her hands on a towel that wouldn't stop slipping through her fingers, she asked, "Are you in love with her?" Her voice wasn't angry. It was soft, almost too soft, like it hurt to speak. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. So she tried again, quieter this time. "Are you going to leave me?" I couldn't answer, because I didn't know, and that was answer enough. Her bottom lip trembled for a second. Just for a second. Then she nodded. One slow, shallow nod, like she was acknowledging something ancient and inevitable. She didn't accuse. Didn't cry in front of me. She just walked to our bedroom, shut the door, and locked it. I stood in the hallway with the phone still in my hand, staring at the door I used to walk through every night and find comfort, and now couldn't even knock on. That night, I slept on the couch. She didn't text, didn't call, but I heard her crying through the wall. Not sobbing, not broken wailing, just soft, muffled breaths, stifled into a pillow. I think that made it worse, because she was still trying to protect me from her pain. Even then, the days after were quieter. I had admitted to everything. I wanted her to know I'd stop. She just listened, quietly. She didn't hate me. She didn't leave. She still made breakfast, still packed my lunch. But everything in her movements was slower, hollowed out, like she was sleepwalking through the life we used to. Have no more kisses. No, I love you, before work. Just mechanical routines, her eyes glassy and rimmed red. At night, I'd wake to find her staring at the ceiling, still, silent, holding a pillow against her chest like it was the only thing keeping her from floating away. She started sleeping less, eating less, started spending hours in the shower, the water running long after the steam had fogged the mirror and the walls had begun to sweat. One morning, I found her slumped on the bathroom floor, not crying, just sitting, her eyes vacant, her skin pale. She looked up at me like she didn't recognize who I was and whispered, "I don't know what I did wrong." I fell to my knees in front of her, tried to hold her hands. She didn't pull away, but she didn't hold me back either. She just let me sit there, like a stranger who'd wandered into her grief. That was the beginning of the end. She changed after that, not all at once, but piece by piece. The weight began to drop off her. Curves vanished beneath sharp bones. Her laugh disappeared. Her favorite books gathered dust. Her shoes stayed by the door untouched. She still loved me, still asked if I was hungry, still reminded me to bring an umbrella, still bought my toothpaste before I ran out. But it was like watching a candle burn from both ends, bright, beautiful, and doomed. And I kept the affair going for another few weeks. I hate admitting that. Even as she wasted away in front of me, I still chose the thrill over the woman who had built her life around me. Even as she wept into silence each night, I still answered texts in bathroom stalls, made excuses for late nights, kissed someone else while she was home alone reheating dinner for one. but I couldn't lie to myself forever. Not when I saw her bent over the sink one night, vomiting nothing but bile. Not when I heard her whispering apologies in her sleep. Not when I saw her ribs for the first time. Like cage bars, over a heart still trying to beat for someone who stopped deserving it. That's when I knew I had broken something that would never fully heal. She never told anyone what I did. Not her mother, who called every evening to ask how she was feeling. Not her sister, who drove 2 hours just to sit with her and braid her hair while she pretended to nap. Not her best friend, who texted funny memes every morning to try and make her smile again. She told no one, and in some ways, that made it worse. Because everyone kept looking at me like I was the good husband who stayed by her side through her sickness. The doting man who brought soup and fluffed pillows and sat in waiting rooms with coffee-stained fingers and sleepless eyes. But only she and I knew the truth. I wasn't the man who stood by her. I was the man who pushed her there. At first, the changes were subtle enough for others to miss. She's just tired, they'd say. She's probably stressed. Maybe she needs a vacation. But I knew. She was eating less and less, sleeping in bursts of shallow breath. Her skin lost its color, and her eyes began to dull like glass marbles clouded with fog. The light she always carried, the one that made people smile when she entered a room, it flickered and dimmed. But she still smiled for them, always, and when they left, she'd lock herself in the bathroom. I heard her crying in there more times than I could count. Not loud sobs, not wails, just this strangled silence, like she was trying not to wake the ghosts that slept in her chest. Her mother came to visit one weekend. She brought groceries, home-cooked meals, and soft blankets with little sunflowers on them. I watched her mother fuss over her, tucking strands of hair behind her ear, running gentle fingers over her thinning arms. "She's lost weight," her mother said to me, trying to sound casual. "She's always been tiny," I replied with a smile so fake it almost cracked my face. She nodded, but her eyes lingered on her daughter for too long. She knew something was wrong. They all did, eventually, but none of them ever imagined it was me. They thought I was the last thing holding her together, but I was the one who broke her in the first place. The hospital came after she fainted. We were sitting on the couch. I was pretending to read a book, and she was curled up beside me like a child who didn't quite belong in her own body. She got up to get water. She never made it to the kitchen. I heard the glass shatter. Found her on the floor, motionless. Her lips cracked, her skin cold, her eyes open but unfocused, like she was somewhere very far away. I carried her to the car myself. My hands were shaking. They never stopped shaking after that. The doctors said she was severely malnourished, dehydrated, anemic. Her immune system was failing, her organs stressed. "She's been under immense stress," one doctor said gently. "Emotional trauma, perhaps?" She didn't look at me, but I felt her words like knives to the throat. Her family came in waves after that. Her mother brought bags of supplements and soft sweaters. Her sister decorated her hospital room with old photos and little fairy lights. Her father, who rarely showed emotion, just stood in the corner with his arms crossed, silently watching her breathe through a tangle of tubes and monitors. They all asked her what happened. She smiled and said, "Nothing. She was just tired, just overworked, just a little sad." They believed her, because no one could imagine that the man sleeping in the hospital chair every night was the reason her heart had slowly given up. She never stopped loving me. That was the worst part. Even as her body collapsed, her soul never turned cruel. She still worried if I had eaten. Still squeezed my hand when I looked scared. Still whispered, "You should rest too," as if I were the one being hollowed out. One night, I caught her crying again. She was facing the window, the moonlight soft on her ruined face. I sat beside her quietly. She didn't move, just asked, "Do you love her?" It had been weeks, maybe months. I didn't even know anymore. I whispered, "No." She nodded. Then, "Why did you do it?" I couldn't answer. Not then. Not ever. She didn't ask again. She just cried herself to sleep. Her decline was slow and cruel. The weight never came back. Her body, once warm and soft and so full of life, became frail, brittle, unrecognizable. She still tried, even near the end. She would ask about my day, try to smile, try to sit up on her own, even when it made her breathless. But I saw her slipping. Every day, a little more. And I couldn't fix what I broke. All I could do was hold her hand and pretend it wasn't my fault. It happened on a Sunday. The sky was clear. The air smelled like rain that never came. The house was quiet. She had made tea for both of us. Hers was always a little sweeter than mine. She liked honey instead of sugar, said it made things feel more intentional. She was thinner now, frail. Her collarbones stuck out like sharp edges. Her eyes, once so full of light, looked almost glassy. But she still moved gently through the kitchen, like nothing in the world was wrong. She hadn't smiled in weeks, but that day she tried, just a little. We were sitting across from each other at the small dining table when it happened. She was telling me about a dream she had. Something about being a little girl again, riding a bike through her grandmother's orchard. I remember her pausing mid-sentence. Her hand went to her chest. Not suddenly, just instinctively, like she was confused by something she felt inside. And then she blinked once, slowly. Her teacup slipped from her fingers. It shattered on the floor, and she collapsed silently onto her side. I didn't understand at first. I called her name, shouted it. I ran to her, cradled her head in my lap. Her eyes were half open, looking past me. Her lips were slightly parted, like she wanted to say something, like she didn't have the strength. Her fingers twitched once, then went still. I screamed for help. I called 911 with shaking hands, tried to do what I'd seen in movies, checked her pulse, her breath, but there was nothing. No gasping, no coughing, no last words, just stillness, the kind that chokes you before you even realize you're crying. They said it was a sudden cardiac arrest, likely brought on by prolonged emotional stress, by physical depletion, by a heart weakened too long, too quietly. There may have been symptoms, the doctor said, but sometimes the body just gives out. She never complained. She never told anyone. She held it all in her chest. The pain, the grief, the betrayal, the confusion, the silent questions. She never got real answers to. It's like her heart simply decided, this is too much. I can't do this anymore. And it stopped. Just like that. Her mother collapsed when they told her. Her father stood there, stunned, whispering her name over and over like it was a prayer. Her sister kept asking if it was a mistake. If they were, sure, no one had seen it coming. Because she didn't let them. Because she protected me, even with her last breath. She never told a soul what I did. Not her family. Not her friends. Not the doctor. No one. She carried my betrayal in silence, swallowed it whole, and died with it still trapped inside her. The funeral was packed. Everyone came. Old teachers, neighbors, people who'd known her when she was still just a girl chasing butterflies in her backyard. They spoke of her laughter, her patience, her gentleness, the way she remembered everyone's birthdays, the way she always made people feel seen. They said she was light in human form. They didn't know what dimmed it. Only I did. When the service was over and the crowd had thinned, I stayed by her casket. I looked at her face one last time. I wanted to apologize, truly apologize, but it was too late. The woman who once loved me more than life was gone, and I did it to her. Not with a knife, not with my hands, but with neglect, lies, and a silence that mirrored her own. I live alone now. Her picture hangs in the hallway. I pass it every morning and every night. I don't dare take it down. It's the only proof I have that something once loved me enough to break when I betrayed it. Sometimes I dream of that Sunday again. The sound of the teacup hitting tile, her hand to her chest, the last look on her face. I wake up with her name on my lips. But now there's no one left to answer anymore.